Good morning, Shuprabhat, and welcome back to Darpan series. Last time हमने execution model को conclude किया था in a very beautiful conversation that happened that was a part of one almost four-part series. That what is the philosophical framework behind execution and how does the execution machinery actually function? Which had five, six levers, and we discussed each lever in depth. I'd say I will go a little more granular. Over the past decade or so, when we have been working in with various organizations, leaders, entrepreneurs, family businesses, what I have realized is that majority of the family businesses think their people are aligned to the deeper meaning of the organization. But somewhere this starts breaking off. Now, that question always arises in the heads of the entrepreneurs that were they really aligned or was it just a mirage? So today's conversation is going to be around this topic, this very hot topic of what is this alignment mirage? And how do I actually identify if this mirage truly exists in my organization? Are people actually aligned or they are just trying to be nice or they're um, just trying to be um, seeming to be aligned? So we will discover these conversations over the next few. We'll discover these conversations the next few minutes, and it will be part of two-part series. It can't be concluded in one part because both the parts are extremely important. So assume this alignment conversation will happen in a two-part series. Call it the alignment mirage. The part one, I will explain the alignment mirage. That why SOCH is tested at the wall and not on the wall. And part two, how do you go beyond alignment mirage? A framework, actual framework for aligning initiatives to SOCH. Now, what is SOCH? How does it connect? What is happening around? We will discuss this. All right. So, here is what we begin our conversation around um, the deeper concept of alignment mirage. तो start करते हैं with the first part of the series. Okay, so this is a two-part series primarily, as I said. The first piece, the first part, the alignment mirage, it will make a almost a philosophical argument. Okay, so nothing actually sustains if the philosophical argument is weak. It makes a philosophical argument that SOCH, a concept introduced to many of my seekers. Many of them are here, maybe they have heard it, but I'll explain how SOCH as a concept is different from many other Western philosophies and how deeper it goes. So, I'll introduce SOCH as a concept to all of you, and I'll define it a little more crudely. I won't say deeply, crudely. And I will tell you for companies, at least in India, and I'll also make a claim across the globe, it is the only durable anchor for an organization and has got a deeper meaning way beyond the Western philosophies of purpose and vision. It's the only durable anchor. And that the strength of this anchor is revealed not in the calm waters and is revealed primarily at the wall. In the moments when organization is pushed and must choose what it actually stands for. Now, these moments come many times in the life of the organization, many times. We have we have seen entrepreneurs who are really on the toes and running the organization are able to come back with great new business models, with great new processes, with new people, and they are able to run it. There was just a time of few times of blips, but ultimately they run it beautifully. Why are they able to do it? ऐसा क्या है entrepreneur में that he is able to do it while Others are not. It is the concepts that deep down they are anchored with the SOCH. And entrepreneurs who are not anchored in SOCH and they're doing it for valuation or selling out or building a money machine, those entrepreneurs run away in those difficult times. They're only worried about their returns. They're only worried about their return on time. They are not anchored on why they started this whole organization. And that's a deeper difference between an investor entrepreneur or investor founder and a true founder. So, Soch defines who you are. Are you an investor, an employee, or an entrepreneur? Now, this why is so deeply ingrained that you will have to understand that Soch is way beyond those ornamental thoughts of purpose and core values. Way beyond. So, that is the first piece. The second piece, the second part of the series, which we'll do next week, it is beyond the alignment mirage. So like an execution model, I the first time I explained you the philosophy behind it, the why, how behind it. And then the second part was the execution levers, and we were explaining each and every element of it and how do you actually implement in the organization. The second part is beyond the alignment mirage. It makes practical alignment. That how the source should be anchored, how it should be translated into the way initiatives are chosen, defended, and ended. It offers a I'll offer a anchor framework, ANCHOR framework, as a working tool for leaders, for entrepreneurs responsible for transformation. So you'll have to wait for another week for that to come. But I would request you to be a part of this two-part series together. The two parts will argue that organizations do not drift because they lack plans, they lack strategy. They drift because in the moments that matter, the anchor they thought was holding them turns out to be sitting at the deck rather than in the water. And many just start searching for the new anchor. Idea is not to look for a new anchor, but look deeper and develop a connection that was supposed to be there, that is always supposed to be there. Okay, so let's start the first part of the series, and I will explain how this Soch as a thought is very different from what the Western philosophies usually offer. It is a level of connection that purpose and vision can never reach, never touch. I'm taking the thought from our ancient philosophies that were available to us all the time and that anchored large empires to be built over here, like Mauryan Empire, like huge. The Aryan system was built on this concept of Soch. There were times when it was such an abundance in this country, such abundance that we were almost contributing 18 to 20% of the world GDP. And because of this anchor, many things stayed along with us even when so much chaos was happening in the society. So before I begin the session, I would explain the word which has no English equivalent. There's no English equivalent. I'm calling it Soch. In English, you can spell it like SOCH. In Hindi, which I prefer, it is Sa, O, or Cha, Soch. It's a word drawn from the Indian past ancient philosophies. In everyday speech, it sometimes is translated like thought or thinking, but that translation is actually, for the lack of any word, impoverished. Soch is not a thought. Soch is not a thought. It is the orientation of mind from which the thoughts arise. तो अगर थॉट को बोले तो वो वृत्ति है, लेकिन सोच आपके संस्कार है. It is that orientation of mind from which the thoughts arise. It is what a person or an organization is before what they say or do. It is unspoken seed bed of every choice that you make from beginning. Vision is what you see, purpose is what you say, soch is who you are when no one is watching. Nothing forces your hand. It is just internal conviction, internal belief system, internal sanskar from where the thoughts are arising. So, why is Soch so different from purpose or vision? Why is it so different? Vision is aspirational, it describes the future state the organization is moving forward to, it is the destination. A vision can be drafted, crafted, revised, updated as the market shifts. Purpose is declarative. So, vision is aspirational, purpose is declarative. It describes why the organization exists in language clear enough to print on the wall. It's a statement. A purpose can be worshipped, it can be workshopped into existence in maybe a 2 day offsite or a 3 day offsite. But Soch, it is neither aspirational nor declarational. It is the spiritual substrate of the organization. Spiritual substrate. The quality of being from which vision and purpose are downstream expressions. It is the quality of the being from which vision and purpose are downstream expressions. You cannot very easily draft soch. Of course, you'll have to put it into words. You can only reveal it. It can only be discovered. And what is revealed is sometimes very different from what is written. So organization can have a very beautiful purpose statement, but it may have a hollow soch. The hollowness will show up in the deck. It will show up in the silences between the meetings. It will get um, uh, it will get show up in the maybe some promotions happening, some celebrations happening. It gets quickly killed. Soch is the level at which an organization actually operates before language is applied to it. So, in our sessions, when we discover this Soch for the organizations, primarily for the entrepreneurs or the leaders who are founders who started it, it's a very deep journey. Then it is not philosophical, it is actually functional. Because had it been only philosophy and no function, entrepreneur won't have created such a great organization. It is the substrate which he's not able to touch or even feel. It is something that who he is. This is why most alignments fail. They actually operate at the level of purpose and vision, words and destination. But the real alignment, the one that holds under pressure, must be at the level of Soch. And Soch cannot be aligned by communication purely, only. It can only be aligned by organization again and again, what by showing up what he chooses, what no when what choices they make, what decisions are taken, and those choices and decisions are taken when no one is forcing the choice. I often have this conversation with many large organizations saying that getting an investor is easy because it's difficult to it's difficult to pass through some phases, but the trauma that you go through when you have a misaligned soch investor is unbearable after a point, and you get into a state of buybacks. It's very murky. Those board meetings go very nasty, and you are not conversing about the great source that you had. You're not conversing about the great great purpose that you had, the great alignment that you had with people, and no more the conversations are happening, and purely one conversation is happening, that how do I give the return? So alignment to the SOCH is a very different alignment. It it passes through the emotional fabric. It touches your spiritual fabric. So any difficult times, you live through it because SOCH is aligned at a very different substrate. Your acceptance, your growth, everything is happening at that substrate level. So what are the three markers of SOCH? So let me put certain things for you so that you don't forget it. So just to give it a give it words. SOCH is not vision. Number one, very important point. It is our spiritual substrate from which thoughts appear. It is that spiritual substrate from which the thoughts appear. It is the anchor of our life. It is the deeper connection of our life. It is not what we say or do, it is who we are. So, alignment at who we are alignment at who we are is much stronger than any other alignment. It's much stronger than any other alignment. It is that deep alignment. Now, it is the frame in which everything else is built, around which everything else is built. It is not the building itself. It is the frame on which everything else is built. It is not the building itself. That's the power of the SOCH. Now, what are the various markers of SOCH? The first marker is it is pre-verbal. So what does that mean? I'll explain that. The second marker is it is collective but not democratic. The third marker is it is felt but not measured. Okay, so three important parts of SOCH. I'm going to write each one of it and explain then so that you understand it. So first, so the three markers to SOCH. Marker one, it is pre-verbal. Marker number two, It is collective but not democratic. Marker number three. It is felt but can't be measured. So keep these three things in your head and your mind, and I will take you through the journey of it. What does it mean actually? So when you say it is pre-verbal, what does that mean? Being pre-verbal actually means it precedes the language. When a long tenured employee says, that's just not who we are. Now there is no verbal explanation of this. You should just smile at it because they are pointing at SOCH. And they cannot often explain it further. The inability to articulate is not weakness here, it's the evidence here. SOCH lives below the level where words are precise. Is this spiritual substrate? That's why it's spiritual substrate, because spirit you cannot explain. I can explain you the body, I can explain you the mind, I can explain you the um, connections around, I can explain you why we exist. I cannot explain who we are. It is similar to the experience of Atma. Similar, there's no difference. And that is where exactly I was saying that even though as we are entering the new disruption world, as we are entering into a world where disruption is the environment, is a backdrop, vision statements, mission statements are not going to help because they will operate at the level of mind and body. We need a very strong management concept evolving out of love, evolving out of spiritual substrate, and that's what Soch is. It lives below the level where words are precise. You will have to still express it, but it won't be precise. It will need to be felt. So when some employee says this is not who we are, when he says that this is what not we stand for, he is unable to get words to explain what he actually means. And this is where the Soch lives. So it is pre-verbal. That's what it means. Pre-verbal is pre-verbal. So when in ancient Indian literature, when you used to say na Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, when they used to say, how do you explain God? Very beautiful. How do you explain God? So the only way to explain is this is not, this is not, this is not, neti neti. This thing, this is not, this is not, this is not. They cannot say who you are. They can say what we are not. तो नॉट करने के बाद में जो फाइनली बच जाता है ना वो सोच है, वो ईश्वर है. सोच प्री वर्बल है, उसके अक्षर उसके लिए कम पड़ जाते हैं. For the world to understand, when Japanese started giving you the concepts of ikigai and the concepts of kaizen, the concept of kanban, they were excavating their own tradition and found how our ancient masters were masters, and they just converted that mastery into management concepts, because today management is the new martial arts. Similarly, there is no much difference between the ancient cultures of China, Japan, and India, but our words resonate with us. Let's not borrow. Let's start creating our own vocabulary. So, Soch is a vocabulary which actually had led to building of large empires, large, great, great civilizations. And that simple thing cannot not be a management thought for us. So it is pre-verbal. It actually means that there is no words that can explain it properly. Of course, we will have to express in words, but the language can never be precise. It has to be felt and lived. So that's the first meaning of Soch. First, or what you can say, marker of Soch. The second marker of Soch, as I written it, it is collective but not democratic. It is collective but not democratic. What does it mean? It means the Soch belongs to the organization. It does not belong to any individual within it. It cannot be vetoed on. It cannot be surveyed into existence. It cannot be imposed upon. It is not possible. It is not possible. You can't survey it, you can't impose it, you can't veto it. You cannot. It is not possible. So when you are in the zone of Soch, you will feel you're a part of a collective. You will feel that you're not no more one individual. You're one with the conscious collective. It's almost like if you've seen this movie Avatar, but how they all come together and they become part of one Navi tribe. How they behave as one organism, even if they are different individuals. So Soch makes you feel as one organism and not one organization. It is collective, it is not democratic. It belongs to organization, not to any individual within it. It cannot It cannot be vetoed. It cannot be surveyed. It cannot be imposed. You can see it, feel it slowly, sip by sip, from thousands of decisions that you've taken over years. And it can be eroded just as slowly by neglecting it. It is not that it can stay forever because it is there. No, it can get eroded by neglecting it. But it also erode not fast, it'll erode slowly. And you won't come to know when it started eroding, but you'll come to know when a critical mass of erosion has happened. How does it erode? It erodes by taking small anti-source decisions, small thousands of anti-source decisions. And when it starts eroding, you don't come to know because you're still enjoying the high of being in Soch, but you start feeling the erosion when the critical mass is eroded. Can it build fast? Answer is again no, because it is slow only. It will build back, but slowly. But slowly. It's awareness. You bring awareness. Now again, thousands and thousands of decisions that you will take in in connection to Soch, it will build back. So one side, Soch is pre-verbal. On the second side, Soch is collective. On the third side, it is felt. You can't have a Soch score. No, not possible. The moment you say I have a SOCH score, you're actually making it mathematical. It is a fragrance. How will you measure a fragrance? So the classical instruments of organizational health, the engagement scores, the NPS, the cultural surveys, they measure what people are willing to say. They measure what people are willing to say. Soch is what they would say if no instrument was watching. It is closer to it is closer to the atmosphere of the organization than to data. Because the moment you try to confine Soch in data, you will immediately start making it making it objective, which it is not meant to be. Okay, so that is a another very important marker of Soch. So three markers: it is pre-verbal, it is collective, and it is felt. So why do we need this word, and why now? Why do we need this word, and why now? So, not to demean, but Western vocabulary of organization life has done extraordinary work in the last century. It has done great work. Strategy, culture, people, mission, vision, values, but it has reached its limit. These words, and I see in many organizations now, they are just ornamental anymore. They're just lying on the walls. These words name layers of the organization that are observable, debatable sometimes, and even rewritable. They have produced a generation of leaders skilled at producing the appearance of alignment without the substance of alignment, and which is the main topic of today. Soch names what those words cannot reach. It points to it points to a DNA that is older than the corporate language, in some ways older than corporations themselves. So, where does Soch come from? It comes from a civilizational tradition in which relationships between inner orientation and outer action is understood to be the first business of any collective endeavor. So, it comes from, I'll repeat again, it comes from a civilizational tradition in which relationship between inner orientation and outer action is understood to be the first business of any collective endeavor. It is much older than strategy and it's much deeper than purpose. So, borrowing a word is not ornamental, it is necessary because absence of the word has allowed leaders to believe what they were doing, the work when they were only doing the writing. So, Soch is to admit that there is a layer in the organization which most transformation efforts never touch. Most transformation initiatives never touch, and which is in the end the layer that decides whether everything else holds it or not. So it's not about the word, it's about the essence of that word. And I would force all of us to use the word. Why? Because we will need the words to hold our thoughts. So an aligned Soch, it's always clear and calm, and everything else is a mirage. Everything else is a mirage. Now, having explained the Soch, I will briefly explain the part one of our alignment series, the alignment mirage. Why Soch is tested at the wall and not on the wall? You can have printed statements on the wall, but it is not tested on the wall, it is tested at the wall. Every organization claims a purpose, it is framed in the lobby, embedded in the board decks, recited in at all hands. But purpose is only at only the surface. Beneath that purpose lies SOCH. And SOCH is not what organization says when a quarter is strong and the press is kind. SOCH is what an organization is when it has been pushed to the wall. You may not have expressed it. You may not have expressed it, but you have lived it. I'll give you examples of the companies in India who've taken birth from this SOCH thought. Amul is one such example, very beautiful example. I keep giving this example for the past 10 years, and I've not been able to find another organization living it so deeply. It is a collective endeavor. That's why it is cooperative. They live from that concept of cooperation. There is no single owner. All of them are owners. And what is the end result? It is one of the most valuable FMCG companies today in the country, beating even Hindustan Levers. And you can't claim of large boards and amazing decks and great career paths, etc., etc. It is one place where you just dip into the ocean of Ganga. You just dip into the purity of Ganga with Soch, and you're part of it. Go visit the Anand factory, and they will come and explain you exactly everything that they do, and you cannot copy it. Try copying it, you can't copy the Soch. You can copy everything else. In that moment, when choices are required, one of the two things reveal itself. Either Soch is the anchor and the organization holds steady, makes hard choices, and emerges clearer, or Soch was never really there. Only a purpose statement standing in it, and the organization scrambles, reaching for a person to save it, a thing to acquire, a number to hit, a narrative to spin. That scramble is the mirage breaking. That scramble is the mirage breaking. What is the core insight here? Alignment to SOCH is not a state. It is the behavior under pressure. It's the behavior under pressure. In calm waters, every organization looks aligned. Strategy decks agree. Town halls are smooth. Leadership team meetings end on time. Mirage holds. But organizations are not built for calm waters. They're not built for calm waters. No matter who you are, you might be excellent and great and you can be reliance of the world. You may have deep pockets, but they're not calm. Why? Because market itself is like that. I don't know a single organization whom I've met, no matter how great they look on the paper outside, when you go inside and look and peep into the books, peep into the daily work, they're all scattered. Because that's the meant to be. That's how the world is operating. But can you be calm in that scatter is defines whether you are aligned to SOCH or not. I've been part of many organizations in my career, and there is not even a single organization which is not living in the scattered waters, not even single. You may have investors, you may have founders who are deep pockets, but when it comes to pushing to the wall, everybody scrambles. Everyone scrambles. They start searching for the safe havens. Organizations are not built for calm waters. They're built to survive turbulence. And turbulence is the only honest diagnostic tool. There is no written diagnostic tool. The only honest diagnostic tool is turbulence. The deepest failure mode in modern organization life is mistaking the absence of conflict for the presence of alignment. Quiet is not alignment. Smooth is not alignment. Every agreement is not alignment. Alignment to SOCH is what remains when everything else has been stripped away. When if you're listed, the stock is down. If you're not listed, your profits are down. The deal is collapsed. The talent walked away, and the decision still has to be made by Friday. That is the alignment to SOCH. So I would want to write one line so that you don't forget that line. So the deepest failure mode in modern organization life is the mistaking the absence of conflict for the presence of alignment. Now, this is one thing that you should always remember. Don't forget this. Absence of conflict does not mean the presence of alignment. Smooth is not alignment. Agreement is not alignment. Alignment to SOCH is what remains when everything else has been stripped away. When your profits are down, revenues are down, customers are walking away, stock is down, deal is collapsed, talent walked away, and still you have to keep moving. That is alignment. So, what I will do is I'll give you some pressure point checks that will reveal whether it's a mirage or an anchor. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 to 4 checks, and those checks will help you understand whether you're aligned or not aligned. The first pressure point check is called the revenue test. So when you have to choose between hitting the number this quarter and honoring what you said you stood for, which wins? Not in theory, in the decision made last Tuesday. Organization anchored to revenue will frame the compromise or pragmatism. However, organizations anchored to SOCH will frame the cost as investment. So the first check is the revenue test. Test 1, revenue test. So are you SOCH aligned or are you revenue aligned? This is the true revenue test. Number 2. The second test is the person test. When a high performer behaves in a way that contradicts the SOCH, do you confront or accommodate? Mirage organizations protect the person at the cost of SOCH. Anchored organizations lose the person to keep the SOCH. There is no third option. You may spend your careers searching for one, you won't find it. The second test is the person test. Do you choose high performer over SOCH? That is test number 2. Test number three. So test number three is the acquisition test. So when the growth stalls, for example, do you reach outward? Say, for example, hire a savior, buy a company, chase a new market. Before doing a harder inner work, do you search outward or inward? Reaching outward isn't always wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong, but the reflex to reach outward is diagnostic. It usually means SOCH inside isn't holding you. So it's the acquisition test. So for a problem, do you start searching a savior outside, or you doing a harder work inside? So I call this test number three, acquisition test. In tough times, do you search for savior outside, or are you willing to do deeper work inside? Test number four. The praise test. What is the praise test? When external validation contradicts internal conviction, the analyst will downgrade your stock, for example, the press will criticize you, for example, the board will be skeptical, for example. Does the organization recalibrate to the noise or hold to the signal? Organizations are anchored in SOCH absorb feedback without being moved by it. And Mirage organizations move with every such gust. So it is the praise or the criticism test. So when there is a external criticism or a validation that contradicts inner conviction, what do you do? So if I have to write it down for you, test for the praise test. On external noise, do you calibrate to noise or to inner signal? That is the praise test. You can also call it a criticism test, but I want to be positive. So that's what praise test. Fifth test is the silence test. In the most consequential meetings, who speaks and who stays quiet? When SOCH is the real anchor, the most junior person in the team, in the room, can invoke it and stop a bad decision. And when the SOCH is a mirage, only authorities speak. And authority, by definition, is anchored to something other than SOCH. So, silence test is who speaks and who remains quiet. Who remains quiet. Test 5 is the silence test. In a room, is the culture of organization to let the junior most speak, and most likely he will be speaking from the SOCH and is not scared of the authority. And by authority, I actually mean position, not SOCH. So if you see it that way, what have we done? We have actually built those tests to understand if my organization is aligned to SOCH or not. So what's an aligned mind, for example? It's clear and calm. A mind aligned to SOCH is clear. So the aligned mind remains clear and calm. A mind aligned to SOCH is clear because it does not relegate the first principle in every decision. The anchor is set, so cognitive energy goes to the question at hand, not to the question beneath the question. That's the aligned mind. It's clear, it's calm. It is calm. Why? Because external turbulence does not threaten internal coherence. The storm is outside, the anchor is inside. However, the mind which is searching for an anchor in a person or a number, an outcome, an identity is cluttered and anxious. Cluttered, why? Because every decision becomes a referendum on what matters. Anxious because anchor is contingent on something external, and external things change always, every day. Maybe over a decade, they're changing. Maybe what you were looking for as an external validation is still not coming to you. This is another very important point. When you are looking for something to happen in your life and that did not happen as an external consequence of whatever actions you were taking, sometimes you get anxious and that internal alignment again goes away. I've seen this happening with various organizations, various leaders in large organizations also. Over a period of 10 years, they waited for something to happen, and nature was testing you whether you are SOCH aligned or external validation aligned. And when external validation did not come or external result did not come, you get misaligned. The mind searching for an anchor in a person, a number, an outcome, an identity is cluttered and anxious and becomes very restless, is unclear, doesn't know what to do, is not able to align. So every decision becomes a referendum on what matters. Anxious because anchor is contingent on something external. This is true of individuals. It is equally true of organizations, which are nothing more than the aggregate of the minds, making decisions under pressure. A clear and calm organization is one in which most people, most of the time, decide from the shared SOCH rather than external substitute to it. And you can feel it. You can feel it the moment you enter the organization within 10 minutes of walking into it. The pace of speech, the quality of disagreement, the way people respond when something goes wrong, clarity and calm are not brand attributes. They're just diagnostics of how an organizational mind functions. And the diagnose is whether SOCH is actually present or only declared. You think SOCH is costly? The last important point to be understood. A SOCH that has never cost the organization anything is not a SOCH. It is a slogan dressed up as one. Every no that you do to a client, every no that you make to an employee costs you. And SOCH is supposed to be costing you. The proof of SOCH is in what we have refused, not what we have pursued. The deal walked away from, a hire not made, a market not entered, a customer not served. Every organization can list what it stands for. Few can list what it has stood for, or what it stood against, to be more precise, not for. And at what cost? The second list, which is what you stood against and at what cost, is the real list. This is why SOCH cannot be manufactured in offsites. It is forged in decisions where saying yes would be would have been more profitable and saying no was expensive. Organizations without that history don't have SOCH. They have aspiration. It shows the tolerance limit. It shows how culture is strongly built. It shows the fanaticism of the organization. The distinction matters because aspiration evaporates under pressure. SOCH is what's left when after the evaporation. So, if a founder or a CEO leaves and the SOCH leaves with them, it was never the organization's anchor. It was that person's anchor. Many organizations discover this only at the worst possible moment during a transition when leader who was embodied in SOCH is no longer in the room and no one else can articulate it without reading it from the card. The SOCH was real, but it lived in one person. That is not organizational alignment. That's dependency. The test of whether SOCH is institutional rather than personal is simple. Ask three people at three different levels on three different days, maybe, to describe in their own words why the organization exists, who are we as an organization, and how does it make hard calls. If the answers rhyme in different words but same essence, SOCH is institutional. If it diverge, SOCH is personal. And the organization is one departure away from the drift. Only one departure away. So, just to close the session today, alignment Mirage is not a failure of strategy or communication. It is a failure of anchoring. Organizations do not drift because they lack plans. They drift because in the moments that matter, the anchor they thought was holding them turns out to be sitting on the deck rather than in the water. What is the work then? The work is not to write a better purpose statement. Work is not to write a better headline. It is to test deliberately, regularly, before the crisis forces the test, whether SOCH actually holds or not. Because when the walls come, and it always comes, you are an organization supposed to come. You do not get to choose your anchor. You only get to discover which one is real. So, next time when I meet you, the companion lecture or series in the series, lecture or session in the series, moves from diagnosis to practice. Now, next time I'll explain you practice. Once SOCH is the anchor, how does it translate into the way initiatives are chosen, into the way initiatives are sequenced, and also in the way initiatives are executed? Because SOCH without execution is contemplation, and execution without SOCH is just motion. The work of leadership, of entrepreneurship, of you, me, and everybody sitting in this webinar today and all those who will be listening to me on LinkedIn or anything else, the work of leadership is to hold the both. One, that hold the SOCH in execution so that it doesn't become contemplation, and it should hold the execution with the SOCH so that this just doesn't become the motion. That's it for today. Any questions you have, you can ask me now. Any thoughts? Yes, Paresh.
Pranam, Rohit ji.
Pranam, pranam.
Sir ji, SOCH, once it gets individualized
Mm-hmm.
and it goes then institutional, and
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes legacy of a business.
Mm-hmm.
How do you rate this transition?
How to rate means what? What is the question? I don't
My,
understand.
my question is, the SOCH is individualized
Mm-hmm.
earlier, by
Mm.
one, and I mean,
Correct. Individual. Correct.
okay.
Mm.
Then, with the gradual growth of a business, it
Mm.
became institutional.
Okay.
Okay? And then, when a transition comes from
Mm.
father to son or from father to, some other partners and whatnot,
Mm.
then it becomes a legacy that this was the original thought of, SOCH, and
Mm.
this is how now the business should run. And the
Mm.
people follow it.
Mm.
So, how do you see this transition?
So the point is, this transition doesn't happen by default. It has to be designed. So when you are an individual with a deeper soch inside you, if you do not actually frame it in the right way, if you do not show it in your actions in the right way, it will not get institutionalized.
Okay.
It will not get. It will stay with you only. One push to the wall and everything breaks.
Hmm.
So therefore, institutionalization of soch is a science. It can't be just done by thinking कि मैंने दो शब्द बोल दिए and people have heard me and that is what the soch is. It is not the case.
I fully agree with the science,
Hmm.
and with the help of the one who has initiated the SOCH,
Hmm.
transform it as an institutionalized and
Hmm.
work for 5 years. That okay, now the institution will work like this,
Correct.
especially in R&D, sir. I
Hmm.
mean, this is the, legacy what we follow, because
Hmm.
once you get you know uh, diverse projects, we
Hmm.
need to change the source at the same time our targets.
Hmm. Soch doesn't change. Soch doesn't change. It's a very deeper concept. It doesn't change. It manifests in different forms. That's a different thing.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to use those words, manifested in different forms. Yeah,
सोच doesn't change. It is आत्मा.
yeah,
आत्मा को
yeah,
अलग
yeah.
अलग शरीर मिल सकता है लेकिन आत्मा
नहीं
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 मिल सकती.
yes, yes, I fully agree, sir. Fully agree.
So that is the art. That is how you actually keep it alive. And you
Right,
have
sir.
to do a right way of doing it. Correct.
Right, sir. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, Yogesh.
Thank you for the amazing session, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Yogesh. Brilliant.
Uh, the way I'm asking question now, also parallelly, I'm analyzing myself also because again, when you say it can be felt but not put into words. So,
Mhm.
but the questions are which are related to my own organization, the way I think,
Mhm.
the way I am doing the things. So, my question is very simple. So, in this business world which is now we are operating on dashboards and KPIs, so I as a leader, uh, can I create the space of trust or the health of our organization, when you say it can be felt but not measured? So,
Mhm.
Soch, what are the current Soch? What I'm understanding, it is inadequate as of now. The things that needs to be done, because whenever we are thinking of an organization, it comes to my aspiration, it comes to my declaration. and there is always a gap which is there.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
my question is a bit tricky now because I need your support in formulating also. Now,
Hmm.
this
Go ahead.
soch, whatever the soch is there at current of me as an individual and the organization,
Hmm.
is it possible to transform that?
Okay, let me explain it to you. I think you're right. So formulation has to be corrected first. Soch, somebody was asking me, can you give me a explanation of Soch? So I was not able to define also very many times, but I gave it a acronym kind of a thing. I just see our clear heart. Okay, so see our clear heart, SOCH. Now, when you are present, there is an energy that you offer which cannot be expressed in words. Now, that energy is your Soch because your Soch comes from that energy. When you're present in a room, automatically energy that space changes. Now, this energy is coming from your Soch. Now, no amount of words ever will be able to match to the energy. Although you will have to give it words, there is no option because unless you give it words, you cannot articulate it to your people, to your team. But I can tell you, no amount of words will ever be able to match up to those, no, to the feeling that you have, the energy that you have. And there will be some people in your organization who will match up to that energy. And you will say, okay, this is one person with whom I'm absolutely comfortable, even if he is not educated, even if he is from a different background. But when I sit with him, I can very smoothly function. I can converse. I can talk without words. Now that is where the Soch lives. Protect such people.
Wonderful. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Uh, I'm just comparing it. Can we say it is related to maybe the aura or the level of consciousness that we have?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
It is.
Thanks.
And that's
Thank
the
you.
that's the reason you cannot articulate it.
Yeah,
But you will have to articulate it. You can't leave it without words.
got that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for this wonderful presence of your time here. We will continue this topic next week again, where we will give you the framework of how SOCH has to be implemented in the organization. And that framework will complete the philosophy of the whole thing. Looking forward to seeing you all of you next week. Thank you very much. Let's end today's program.